Commander Sarah Chun stepped off the transport shuttle and into the bright lights of Kepler Prime Station. The massive space station floated between 3 star systems, serving as neutral ground for all the different alien races in the galaxy. Today, it hosted the biggest military technology show of the year. Sarah looked around at the huge exhibition hall. Hundreds of booths displayed weapons, armor, and defense systems from dozens of different worlds. The air buzzed with excitement as military leaders from across the galaxy examined each other's latest inventions. "Stay close, everyone," Sarah told her small team of humans. "Remember, we're here to show them what Earth can build." Behind her, Lieutenant Marcus Webb guided a large floating platform. On it sat humanity's newest creation, the Mk-7 Titan combat armor. The massive suit stood 8 feet tall and gleamed under the station's lights. Its thick metal plates and heavy joints made it look like a walking tank. As they moved through the crowd, Sarah noticed alien heads turning to stare at their display. Most of the looks weren't friendly or impressed. They seemed more like the looks people give to something funny or strange. The first aliens to approach their booth were the Veltar. They looked almost human, but taller and thinner, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. Their leader, Ambassador Velanesh, wore robes that seemed to shimmer and change color as he moved. "Ah, the humans have arrived," Velanesh said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "And what is this impressive monument you've brought us?" Sarah kept her voice steady and professional. "This is our latest powered combat armor. The Mk-7 Titan system provides complete protection for soldiers in hostile environments." Velanesh walked around the armor display, his expression growing more amused with each step. "How substantial. Tell me, Commander, how much does this device weigh?" 820 pounds when fully loaded, Lieutenant Webb answered proudly. The Voltar ambassador actually laughed out loud. 800 pounds? My dear humans, our soldiers wear protection that weighs less than their underwear. Watch this. Velanesh pressed a button on his wrist. Suddenly, a faint blue glow surrounded his body like a second skin. Personal energy shield. Stops any weapon we've ever encountered. Weighs nothing. Uses barely any power. More aliens gathered around their booth, drawn by the sound of laughter. The Zoth arrived next. Insect-like beings with 4 arms and compound eyes. Their military scientist, Dr. Zixtar, examined the human armor with obvious disbelief. "This is what passes for advanced technology on Earth." Dr. Zixtar's voice came through a translator device. "It looks like something our ancestors might have built 1,000 years ago." "The armor provides excellent protection," Sarah said, trying to maintain her diplomatic smile. "Protection, yes," said another Veltar officer. "But at what cost? Your soldier wearing this thing must move like a glacier. How can they fight effectively while carrying a small building on their back?" Dr. Zixtar manipulated controls on his own equipment. His chitinous armor suddenly became completely invisible. Adaptive camouflage system. Not only does it provide protection, but enemies cannot even see the wearer. And it weighs 12 pounds. The crowd of aliens grew larger. Representatives from a dozen different species came to see what the fuss was about. Word spread quickly through the exhibition hall that the humans had brought something hilariously primitive to show off. "Look at the thickness of those plates," commented a crystalline being from the Nexus Collective. "Do they expect to fight starships with personal weapons?" "Typical Deathworlder thinking," Dr. Zixtar explained to the crowd. "Species from dangerous worlds always overbuild everything. They cannot conceive of elegant solutions. They only understand brute force." A tall, graceful alien from the Silurian Empire added her own observation. "On civilized worlds, we learned long ago that mobility and intelligence matter more than armor thickness. Why carry a fortress when you can simply avoid being hit?" Sarah felt her jaw clench as the comments continued. Every few minutes, another alien would point out how crude, heavy, or outdated the human armor looked compared to their own advanced systems. Lieutenant Webb stepped closer to Sarah. "Commander, permission to speak freely?" "Not here, Marcus," Sarah whispered back. "We're guests." But she could see the anger building in her engineer's eyes. Webb had spent 2 years developing the Titan armor. He'd worked 18-hour days, tested every system dozens of times, and personally supervised the construction of each component. Hearing it dismissed as primitive junk was clearly getting to him. "The problem with human engineering," Belanash continued, now addressing the crowd like a teacher, "is that they think more is always better. More armor, more weapons, more power. They haven't learned that true advancement means doing more with less." "Exactly," agreed Dr. Zixtar. "Elegant solutions replace crude ones. Why build a wall when you can redirect the attack? Why use heavy armor when you can use smart armor?" A young Veltar military officer spoke up. "I've read reports about Earth. The humans fought wars against their own species for thousands of years. It explains their paranoid approach to defense. They still think like primitives, expecting someone to hit them with rocks and metal." The crowd found this comment particularly funny. Sarah watched as dozens of advanced beings laughed at humanity's apparently backward way of thinking. "Perhaps," Belanash said with mock sympathy, "in a few hundred years, humans will develop more sophisticated approaches to protection. Until then, they seem content with their walking bunkers." Sarah looked at the Titan armor standing silently on its display platform. To her, it represented the finest work human engineers had ever accomplished. Every system had been tested and refined. Every component had multiple backups. The armor could keep a soldier alive in environments that would kill most organic life forms within seconds. But to these aliens, it just looked heavy and stupid. "Tell me, Commander," Dr. Zixtar asked, "what happens when your soldier needs to move quickly? Can this armor run? Can it jump? Can it dodge incoming fire?" "The powered systems provide enhanced mobility," Sarah replied carefully. "Enhanced compared to what? A building?" The Zox scientist's laugh sounded like clicking metal. "Our soldiers move like dancers. Yours move like construction equipment." The exhibition continued for another hour, with aliens taking turns examining the human armor and finding new things to criticize. Some comments focused on its appearance. Others questioned its practicality. A few aliens seemed genuinely curious about human thinking, but most just found the whole thing entertaining. As the crowd finally began to disperse, Sarah heard one final comment from a departing Veltar officer. "Well, at least we know humans are serious about survival, even if they don't understand efficiency yet." Sarah watched the aliens walk away, discussing human primitiveness among themselves. Tomorrow would bring formal technology demonstrations. She wondered if the humans would get any respect then, or if the mockery would just continue. Beside her, Lieutenant Webb stared at his creation with clenched fists. The second day of the exhibition started differently. Admiral Dexmore of the Veltar approached the human booth early in the morning, before the crowds arrived. His dark blue uniform was covered in medals, and his pale features showed the confidence of someone used to command. "Commander Chun," he said with a formal bow, "I hope yesterday's discussions weren't too educational for your team." Sarah kept her expression neutral. "We learned a great deal about galactic technology standards, Admiral." Good. Dexmore glanced at the Titan armor. "Today, we thought it might be interesting to conduct some practical demonstrations. Nothing formal, you understand. Just friendly comparisons between different defensive approaches." Dr. Zixtar appeared beside the Admiral, his insect-like features unreadable. "The exhibition organizers have prepared a testing range in the lower section of the station. We could show each other how our systems perform under real conditions. Lieutenant Webb looked up from his equipment checks. What kind of conditions? Oh, nothing too strenuous, Dexmore replied casually. Standard weapons tests. We fire at the armor, see how well it protects. Purely scientific. Sarah felt a warning bell go off in her head. What level of weapons are we discussing? We'll start small, naturally, Dr. Zixtar said. Personal plasma rifles, particle beams, that sort of thing. The kind of weapons any civilized military uses. Within an hour, word had spread throughout the station. Aliens from dozens of species gathered in the testing facility, eager to see how different armor systems compared. The testing range had been designed for starship weapons, so it could easily handle personal military equipment. The Voltar went first. A volunteer soldier activated his energy shield and stood in the target area. His comrade fired a plasma rifle directly at him. The blue energy beam struck the shield and scattered harmlessly in all directions. The crowd applauded politely. Next level, called the range supervisor. The weapons tech switched to a heavier particle cannon. Again, the Veltar shield deflected the attack without problems. The soldier inside didn't even move. Impressive, Sarah admitted to Webb. Clean energy dispersion, minimal power draw. The Zoth demonstration came next. Their soldier activated his adaptive armor and immediately became almost invisible, like a heat shimmer in the air. When the plasma rifle fired, the beam passed right through him as if he wasn't there. Phase shift technology, Dr. Zixtar explained proudly. The armor briefly moves the wearer slightly out of normal space-time. Physical attacks cannot touch what isn't completely there. The crowd murmured appreciation. Several military observers took detailed notes that other species showed their own defensive systems. The Nexus Collective used crystalline barriers that absorbed energy and redirected it harmlessly into the ground. The Sungurians deployed personal gravity fields that bent incoming attacks away from their bodies. Every demonstration emphasized the same themes: elegance, efficiency, and minimal weight. Each system protected its user while maintaining complete mobility and using very little power. Now, Admiral Dexmore announced with obvious amusement. Perhaps our human friends would like to demonstrate their robust approach to personal protection. The crowd's attention focused on Lieutenant Webb as he began putting on the Titan armor. The process took several minutes with multiple system checks and power-up sequences. By contrast, every alien system had activated instantly. Does it always take this long to get dressed? Asked a young Veltar officer. The armor has 47 different systems, Webb replied through the suit speakers. Each one needs to initialize properly. 47? Dr. Zixtar sounded incredulous. Our adaptive armor has 3 main systems and works perfectly. Finally, Webb stood ready in the target area. The Titan armor made him look like a walking fortress. Its thick plates gleamed under the range lights, and small indicator displays showed that dozens of internal systems were running. What should we start with? Asked the weapons technician. Use the same plasma rifle, Sarah suggested. The beam struck Webb's chest plate dead center. Unlike the alien shields that deflected or avoided the attack, the human armor simply absorbed it. The thick metal plates glowed briefly with heat, then returned to normal. Crude but effective, Dexmore commented. Though I notice your soldier can't move nearly as quickly as ours could. Try the particle cannon, Webb said. The heavier weapon fired. Again, the Titan armor absorbed the hit. This time, Webb staggered slightly from the impact, but remained standing. The armor's surface showed scorch marks but no penetration. Fascinating, Dr. Zixtar observed. It just takes the damage directly. No finesse at all. It works, Sarah replied simply. The aliens began suggesting stronger weapons. Each test proved the same point. Human armor could absorb tremendous punishment, but it did so through brute force rather than elegant deflection. "Your approach is so direct," commented the Silurian representative. "When we see a threat coming, we avoid it. You see the same threat and decide to face it head-on." "Different philosophies," Sarah agreed. As the testing continued, the aliens' comments grew more pointed. They began discussing human psychology, wondering what kind of species would choose such heavy, cumbersome protection when lighter alternatives existed. "It speaks to their nature," Dr. Zixtar told a group of observers. "Humans come from a death world. They evolved expecting everything to try to kill them. They can't imagine avoiding threats, only surviving them." "It's almost primitive," added a Nexus Collective engineer. "Like seeing someone build a stone wall when force field generators exist." Admiral Lexmore walked closer to the testing area, studying the scarred but intact human armor. "I have to admit, it's impressively sturdy. But in real combat, mobility matters more than armor thickness. What good is protection if you can't chase your enemies or retreat when necessary?" "Our suits provide enhanced movement capabilities," Webb responded. "Enhanced compared to carrying that much weight without powered assistance, perhaps," Lexmore replied. "But still far slower than true mobility systems." The Admiral paused, then smiled in a way that made Sarah nervous. "I have an idea for a final test. Something that would really demonstrate the differences between our approaches." Dr. Zixtar's compound eyes focused on Lexmore. "What did you have in mind?" "Well," the Admiral said slowly, "we've been using standard weapons so far. Weapons that any armor might reasonably be expected to stop. But what about something more advanced?" The testing range grew quieter as aliens realized what Lexmore was suggesting. "You mean classified weapons?" asked the Silurian representative. "Nothing too extreme," Lexmore said with false casualness. "But it might be educational to see how different armor philosophies handle truly modern threats." Sarah felt her stomach drop. "Admiral, our armor was designed for conventional combat scenarios." "Oh, I'm sure it's very good at that," Lexmore replied. "But the galaxy has moved beyond conventional weapons. Perhaps it's time humans learned what they're really facing out here." Dr. Zixtar clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "It would be an interesting test. How do primitive designs handle advanced physics?" The crowd began to buzz with excitement. Sarah realized that what had started as a friendly demonstration was turning into something much more serious. The aliens weren't just showing off their technology anymore. They were proving a point about human inadequacy. "What weapon did you have in mind?" Webb asked from inside his armor. "Admiral." Lexmore's smile grew wider. "The Voidripper cannon." The testing range fell completely silent when Admiral Lexmore mentioned the Voidripper cannon. Even aliens who had been chatting quietly stopped talking. Sarah watched several species take involuntary steps backward. "Admiral," Dr. Zixtar said carefully, "are you certain that's wise? The Voidripper has never been used against biological targets." "That's exactly why this would be educational," Lexmore replied. "We've all seen conventional weapons fail against various armor types. But the Voidripper represents next-generation military technology. It would demonstrate why old-fashioned protection methods are obsolete." A Silurian military observer spoke up. "The weapon was classified for a reason. It's designed to penetrate starship hulls, not test personal armor, which makes it perfect for this demonstration," Lexmore said smoothly. "If human armor can't handle advanced threats, they need to know that before they encounter them in real combat." Sarah felt her heart rate increase. "Admiral, perhaps we should discuss this privately first. My superiors would need to approve any tests involving classified alien weapons." Of course," Lexmore waved dismissively. "But we're among allies here. This is purely scientific." And your lieutenant volunteered for weapons testing, didn't he? From inside the Titan armor, Webb's voice came through clearly. Commander, I'm willing to proceed if you think it's necessary. Marcus, you don't understand what you're volunteering for, Sarah said quickly. Dr. Zixtar moved closer to the group. Perhaps I should explain the technology. The Void Ripper uses quantum tunneling principles. It briefly shifts projectiles into subspace before re-emerging inside the target. Conventional armor becomes irrelevant because the weapon simply bypasses physical barriers. It doesn't go through armor, added a Veltar weapons specialist. It goes around armor by using higher dimensions. The projectile exists in normal space, then doesn't exist, then exists again on the other side of whatever you're trying to protect. Sarah's training in physics helped her understand the implications. You're talking about a weapon that ignores the normal rules of matter and space. Exactly, Dexmore said with satisfaction. Even our own energy shields can only deflect it about 40% of the time. The quantum physics involved are too complex for simple barrier systems. The crowd of aliens pressed closer, sensing that something unprecedented was about to happen. Representatives from species Sarah had never seen before appeared, drawn by word that classified Veltar technology might be demonstrated. This seems unnecessarily dangerous, protested a crystalline Nexus being. Testing experimental weapons on living beings goes against several galactic conventions. The human is protected by armor, Dexmore pointed out. If their technology is as robust as they claim, there shouldn't be any danger. And if it's not, well, they need to learn that lesson eventually. Sarah realized the political trap they walked into. Refusing the test would confirm alien suspicions that human technology was primitive and inadequate. But accepting it could get Webb killed by a weapon that supposedly ignored physical protection entirely. How does the weapon work exactly? Webb asked. Dr. Zixtar gestured toward a massive device being wheeled into the testing range. The Void Ripper cannon looked like something built by engineers who understood physics better than humans ever would. Its sleek barrel was surrounded by rings of exotic components that hummed with barely contained energy. The process has 3 phases, the Zoc scientist explained. First, quantum field generators create a subspace tunnel. Second, the projectile is shifted into higher dimensions. Third, it re-emerges at the target coordinates regardless of what physical barriers exist in normal space. What happens to anything in the way? Sarah asked. That's what makes it so effective, Dexmore said proudly. There is no in the way. The projectile appears inside the target as if armor never existed. Perfect penetration every time. A young Veltar officer approached. Sir, the weapon requires significant power to charge. Station operations is asking about energy requirements. Tell them it's for an important demonstration, Dexmore replied. And make sure all recording systems are active. This will be quite educational for everyone. Sarah watched alien technicians prepare the massive cannon. Its charging sequence created visible distortions in space around the muzzle. The air itself seemed to bend and twist as exotic energy fields built up inside the weapon's core. Commander, Webb said privately over their comlink, I've been thinking about our armor design. All those redundant systems, all that extra weight. Maybe there's a reason our engineers built it that way. Marcus, this weapon ignores physical barriers. It doesn't matter how thick our armor is. Maybe, but our people designed this suit to handle unknown threats. They built in protections against things that don't even exist yet. What if they accidentally included something that helps with this? Sarah looked at the Titan armor standing in the target area. Earth's engineers had indeed over-designed every system. They'd included electromagnetic field generators for joint power. They'd layered different materials and patterns that seemed unnecessary. They'd built in energy distributors, quantum resonance dampers. and dozens of other components that served multiple purposes. The quantum resonance dampers, Sarah whispered suddenly. What about them? Webb asked. They're supposed to prevent interference between our own electronic systems. But quantum mechanics is quantum mechanics. Maybe they affect other things too. Dr. Zixstar overheard their conversation. Quantum resonance dampers? Why would personal armor need such devices? Electromagnetic interference from the powered systems, Sarah explained. Our engineers wanted to prevent one system from disrupting another. How primitive, Dexmore commented. Proper design eliminates such problems entirely. But if it makes you feel better about the test, by all means, believe in your redundant systems. The Voidripper cannon finished charging. Its energy readings made nearby instruments flicker and beep warnings. Several aliens moved to viewing areas behind protective barriers. Final weapons check complete, announced the Veltar technician. Quantum tunneling field stable. Target acquisition locked. Admiral Exmore looked directly at Sarah. Commander, this is your last chance to withdraw from the demonstration. No shame in admitting when you're outclassed. Sarah looked at Webb standing motionless in his armor. Every instinct told her to stop the test. But she also knew that backing down now would confirm every alien prejudice about human capabilities. Lieutenant Webb, she said formally, do you consent to this weapons test? Yes, Commander. For humanity. Very well. Sarah turned to Dexmore. Proceed with your demonstration, Admiral. Dexmore smiled and nodded to his weapons team. Fire when ready. The massive cannon swiveled to target the human armor. Space around its muzzle began to tear and fold as quantum fields reached critical intensity. Firing. In 10 seconds, announced the technician. The countdown began as hundreds of aliens watched to see whether human engineering could survive contact with advanced galactic technology. The Voidripper cannon fired with a sound that made everyone's ears hurt. It wasn't like any normal weapon discharge. Instead of a simple bang or energy beam, reality itself seemed to scream as the quantum projectile tore through the fabric of space-time. The round disappeared from normal space, leaving behind a trail of distorted air that sparkled with impossible colors. For a moment, nothing existed in the path between the cannon and Lieutenant Webb. Then the projectile rematerialized inside the target area, exactly where Webb's chest should be. The explosion knocked everyone backward. Emergency barriers activated automatically as energy readings spiked beyond safe levels. Alien spectators who had been standing too close found themselves thrown to the ground by the shockwave. When the smoke and energy discharge finally cleared, Admiral Dexmore stood up slowly, expecting to see a crater where the human had been standing. Instead, he saw something that made his pale blue face turn even whiter. Lieutenant Webb was still there. The Titan armor looked terrible. The chest plate had cracked in 3 places. Burn marks covered the entire front section. Several small systems were sparking and smoking. But Webb was standing upright, and his voice came clearly through the damaged speakers. That was unpleasant. But I'm still here. The testing range fell completely silent. Hundreds of aliens stared at the damaged but intact human armor with expressions of total disbelief. Some of them had stopped breathing entirely. Dr. Zixstar was the first to speak, his voice coming out as a mechanical whisper. That's impossible. Run a full sensor sweep, Dexmore commanded his technicians. Check for equipment malfunction. The weapon must have misfired. Sir, all systems show normal operation, reported the weapons specialist. The Voidripper fired exactly as designed. Quantum tunneling field operated within normal parameters. The projectile definitely rematerialized at the target coordinates. Then why is the human still alive? Dexmore demanded. Sarah felt her knees go weak with relief. She activated her communicator with shaking hands. "Marcus, report your status immediately." "I'm okay, Commander," Webb replied. "Shaken up pretty badly, and several armor systems are offline, but I'm not injured." The suit took the hit and somehow stayed intact. Dr. Zixtar skittered across the testing range on his 4 legs, pulling out scanning equipment as he moved. "This makes no sense." The Void Ripper projectile appeared inside the armor. "I can detect residual quantum signatures." But somehow the explosive force was contained and dispersed instead of destroying the target. "Maybe the weapon malfunctioned," suggested a Silurian observer. "No malfunction," the Veltar technician reported grimly. "All readings confirm normal operation. The weapon performed exactly as designed." More aliens crowded around the damaged armor, scanning it with every kind of sensor they possessed. The readings only deepened their confusion. "Commander Chun," called the Nexus Collective engineer, "your armor appears to have created some kind of quantum interference field. How is that possible with such primitive technology?" Sarah looked at the crowd of mystified aliens. "I honestly don't know." Dr. Zixtar's scanner beeped frantically as he examined the Titan's chest section. "Wait, I'm detecting unusual quantum resonance patterns in the armor's construction. Multiple overlapping fields that seem to—" "Oh my, what is it?" Dexmore asked impatiently. "The human armor isn't just thick metal plates," Dr. Zixtar said slowly. "There are dozens of different systems layered throughout the structure. Electromagnetic field generators, quantum resonance dampers, energy distribution networks. The specific combination creates an interference pattern that—" The insect-like scientist trailed off, his compound eyes staring at his scanner readings. "That what?" Sarah prompted. "That forced the quantum-tunneled projectile back into normal space-time before it could fully materialize inside the armor." Dr. Zixtar finished weakly. Admiral Dexmore grabbed the scanner and examined the readings himself. "You're saying their armor accidentally created a quantum dampening field?" "Not accidentally," Dr. Zixtar corrected. "The field requires a very specific arrangement of components. The electromagnetic generators have to be positioned precisely. The resonance dampers need exact frequency settings. The energy distributors must create particular interference patterns. This level of quantum engineering is extremely advanced." Sarah felt a strange mixture of pride and confusion. "Our engineers didn't design the armor to do that. They just wanted to prevent our own systems from interfering with each other. Then how did they know the exact specifications needed to disrupt quantum tunneling?" asked the Silurian representative. "They didn't," Webb answered from inside his damaged suit. "They just over-engineered everything. They built in protections against every kind of interference they could think of." The implications slowly dawned on the gathered aliens. A species they had dismissed as primitive had somehow created technology that could defeat their most advanced weapons. And they'd done it by accident while solving a completely different problem. "This is incredible," murmured a being Sarah hadn't seen before. "Do you realize what this means? Your people developed quantum interference shielding without even understanding quantum mechanics properly. How many other primitive human technologies have capabilities we haven't recognized?" asked another alien. Admiral Dexmore looked physically ill. The weapon he'd been so proud to demonstrate had been defeated by what he'd considered crude, outdated armor. "Test the readings again," he ordered his team. There has to be some other explanation. But every scan confirmed the same impossible truth. Human armor had survived a direct hit from a weapon designed to ignore all known forms of protection. Dr. Zixtar continued analyzing the Titan suit with growing amazement. The quantum dampening field extends throughout the entire armor structure. It's not just in one location. It's built into the fundamental design. Every component contributes to the overall effect. But they couldn't have planned this. protested a Voltar engineer. Humans don't have quantum tunneling technology. They couldn't have known what to defend against. That's what makes it so remarkable, Dr. Zixtar replied. They built defenses against threats that didn't even exist in their experience. They over-engineered their protection to handle unknown attack methods. Sarah began to understand what had happened. Earth's violent history had taught human engineers to prepare for anything. They built redundancy into every system. They protected against every kind of interference or attack they could imagine. And in doing so, they had accidentally created protection against things they couldn't imagine. My God, Sarah whispered. They built it to survive the unthinkable. And it did, Webb added with obvious pride in his voice. The crowd of aliens continued staring at the damaged but functional human armor. What had started as a demonstration of primitive technology had turned into something none of them had expected. Admiral Dexmore finally spoke, his voice much quieter than before. Commander Chun, I believe we need to discuss your armor technology in much greater detail. I believe we do. Admiral, Sarah replied, for the first time since arriving at Kepler Prime. She felt like the aliens were looking at humans with respect instead of amusement. 3 hours after the Voyager protest, Sarah found herself in the station's most secure conference room. Representatives from every major galactic civilization sat around the table, all of them looking at her with expressions she'd never seen before. Respect, wariness, and something that might have been fear. Admiral Dexmore spoke first, his earlier arrogance completely gone. Commander Chun, we need to understand exactly how your people developed this technology. The implications for galactic security are enormous. I've told you everything I know, Sarah replied. Our engineers built the armor to handle Earth's hostile environment and unknown threats. They didn't realize they were creating quantum interference fields. Dr. Zixtar leaned forward across the table. But that's exactly what makes this so significant. Your species instinctively prepared for threats they'd never encountered. What drove that kind of paranoid engineering? Sarah thought about Earth's history. Thousands of years of warfare. Humans fighting humans with every weapon they could invent. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, and diseases that wiped out entire civilizations. Earth tried to kill us in every way possible, she said simply. So we learned to prepare for everything. But most species don't develop such extreme defensive thinking, pointed out the Silurian representative. Our homeworld had natural disasters too, but we focused on avoiding them rather than surviving them. Humans don't think like that, Sarah explained. When we see a threat, we don't assume we can avoid it. We assume it will find us eventually, so we better be ready to survive it. A new voice spoke up from the far end of the table. General Mordex of the Hegemony Defense Force was known throughout the galaxy as a military genius. His scarred features showed experience in dozens of conflicts. Commander, I've been reviewing reports about human military history. Your species has fought wars continuously for over 5,000 years. Is this accurate? Yes, sir. We've rarely had more than a few decades of peace anywhere on our planet. And during these conflicts, you developed weapons capable of destroying your entire civilization multiple times over? Sarah nodded reluctantly. Nuclear weapons, biological warfare, climate modification systems. We built things that could end all life on Earth. General Mordex sat back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. Most species achieve spaceflight before developing planet-killing weapons. You developed the weapons first, then somehow avoided using them long enough to reach the stars. How? Fear, Sarah answered honestly. We knew what those weapons could do, so we built defenses against them. Then we built defenses against the defenses. Then we built defenses against things that didn't exist yet, just in case someone invented them. Dr. Zixtar's mandibles clicked rapidly. That explains the Titan armor. You weren't just protecting against known threats. You were protecting against every possible threat. Exactly. Our engineers assumed that if something could be weaponized, someone would eventually weaponize it. So they built armor that could handle theoretical attacks from theoretical weapons. Admiral Lexmore looked disturbed. And in doing so, they accidentally created protection against our most advanced technology. Without even knowing it, Sarah confirmed. The conference room fell silent as the implications sank in. The civilizations around this table had spent thousands of years developing elegant, efficient military technologies. They'd created weapons that could bypass any known defense, and defenses that could stop any known attack. But humans had created protection against unknown attacks. Commander, General Mordix said slowly, how many other pieces of human technology have capabilities you haven't discovered yet? I honestly don't know, Sarah admitted. Our engineers overbuild everything. They put in redundant systems, backup systems for the backup systems, and protection against interference nobody's ever seen. Show me, Dr. Zixtar demanded suddenly. I want to examine every human technology you brought to this exhibition. If your armor accidentally defeated quantum tunneling, what else might your equipment do? Over the next several hours, alien scientists swarmed over every piece of human equipment they could find. What they discovered amazed and worried them in equal measure. Human plasma. Rifles had built-in electromagnetic dampening that could disrupt Veltar energy shields. Human communication systems included quantum encryption that was supposedly impossible without specialized equipment. Human environmental suits contained radiation protection that could handle energy, types that didn't exist in Earth's solar system. It's like your entire technology base was designed by someone who knew every possible threat in the galaxy. The Silurian representative observed. Not someone, Sarah corrected. An entire species that spent millennia trying to kill itself and learning to survive anyway. Lieutenant Webb had been cleared by medical teams and joined the conference. The Titan armor was undergoing detailed analysis by teams of alien engineers who couldn't believe what they were seeing. Commander, Webb reported, they want to know if we'd be willing to share our defensive technologies with the Galactic Defense Coalition. In exchange for what? Sarah asked. Admiral Dexmore answered immediately. Full membership in the coalition. Not associate status or probationary membership. Full voting rights and access to all shared technologies. Sarah tried to hide her surprise. Yesterday, the aliens had been treating humans like primitive newcomers who needed centuries of development before they could contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization. You're offering us equal status? She asked. Commander, General Mordix said seriously, we're offering you leadership positions. Your species has something the rest of us lost long ago, the ability to prepare for threats we can't imagine. Dr. Zixtar added, my analysis of your armor suggests that humans could develop countermeasures for weapons that don't exist yet. In a galaxy full of unknown dangers, that capability is invaluable. But we're still primitive by your standards, Sarah pointed out. Our technology is crude and inefficient. Your technology is survivable, the Silurian representative corrected. Elegance means nothing if it can't protect you from the unexpected. Admiral Dexmore stood and walked to the viewing port that looked out over Kepler Prime's docking bays. Commander, the galaxy is much more dangerous than most species realize. We've had peace for centuries, but that peace exists because we've defeated or contained every known threat. What about unknown threats? Sarah asked. Exactly. We've become so focused on efficiency that we've forgotten how to survive the impossible. Your species never forgot. Sarah looked around the table at representatives of dozens of advanced civilizations, all of them now treating humanity with genuine respect. What are you asking of us? Help us remember what we've lost, General Mordick said. Teach our engineers to overbuild like yours do. Show our soldiers how to prepare for threats that don't exist yet. In exchange, we'll share everything we've learned about making technology elegant and efficient. You want us to make your military more paranoid? Webb asked. We want you to make our military more survivable, Dr. Zixtar corrected. Your armor proved that sometimes the crude approach works better than the sophisticated one. Sarah thought about Lieutenant Webb standing in that testing range, protected by 800 pounds of over-engineered human paranoia. The armor had been mocked as primitive and inefficient. But when advanced alien weapons failed to penetrate it, those same aliens had been forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew about defense technology. We'll need to consult with Earth Command, she said finally. Of course, Admiral Dexmore replied. But I think your leaders will be interested in our offer, especially when they learn that humanity's primitive engineering just revolutionized galactic military thinking. As the conference ended and aliens began filing out, Dr. Zixtar approached Sarah one last time. Commander, I owe your species an apology. We called your technology primitive because it was heavy and crude. But we were measuring the wrong things. What should you have been measuring? Sarah asked. Effectiveness. Your armor worked when ours would have failed. That's all that really matters. Sarah watched through the viewing port as alien ships prepared for departure. Representatives were returning to their homeworlds to report that the galaxy had gained not just a new member species, but a new approach to survival itself. Humanity had spent millennia learning to survive on a world that constantly tried to kill them. In doing so, they developed something more valuable than any advanced technology, the wisdom to prepare for the unthinkable. And now that wisdom would help protect the entire galaxy from threats none of them had imagined yet. Lieutenant Webb joined Sarah at the viewing port. Commander, do you think they really understand what they're asking for? Sarah smiled as she watched the alien ships jump to hyperspace, carrying word of humanity's unexpected gift to galactic civilization. They're about to find out, Marcus. They're about to find out.